All right, so we're back. Okay, check this out. This is my 2000XL. All right. On the back here, I got the 8-ounce installed, right? So that's where you see all these, nice colored cables at the bottom. And this right here is my digital coax cable. My digital coax cable is going to the back of the 003 rack. So, I can't really pull this out here, but basically in the back here, it's all my little connections. And you see MIDI cables and some audio cables and, some TRS cables and XLR cables down there. So I got a lot of different stuff hooked up to this 003 rack. Okay, so, but what's happening here is I've got an input number 1 on the, or I should say, input number 1 on the MPC, this gray cable right here. What's happening is this is connected to my MIDI controller. And by the way, I did get a new MIDI controller. I wanted something that actually took up less space on my desk. So I happened to find this first generation Novation remote. And it doesn't do the auto map or anything like that, but it has a lot of templates. And I pretty much have a template for any damn thing you could think of. So, I mainly use like a Logic template for it. But anyhow, that gray cable that was hooked up on my MPC is connected back here on the output of the Novation. So that's how I get my MIDI input to the MPC. Now, what I also have here is this red cable. And this red MIDI cable right here is connected to input number 2 on the MPC. And from the input 2, it's going, or I should say from my computer, the 003 back here, this red cable back here is connected to an output on the 003. The 003 has 2 outputs, and I'm using output number, I believe it's number 2. And that's what's sending the MPC the MIDI time code or the MIDI beat clock, depending on what I'm using. Most of the time I use MIDI time code because of the because it's more accurate than the MIDI beat clock. But so that's how I have it hooked up going into the MPC. And then I have this orange cable right here, which looks like it needs to be replaced now. Damn. Okay. But I have this hooked up. It's actually connected to this MIDI port right here. And I know you're asking, okay, you said you got an input, or you know you have an input on the 003. Why do you have it connected to this MIDI port? Well, I noticed there were some issues with having all my audio and my MIDI running through the 003. It actually started acting kind of weird, like glitchy at some points. And I discovered this and said, okay, I know I have another MIDI interface hanging around here. I've had this USB MIDI port for about 7 years. So I picked it up and said, okay, let me hook it back up to my computer and then try hooking up the MPC to the input on here. So it's actually hooked up to input B right here. And that's how I trigger the sounds in Logic, Reason, or whatever else I'm doing. So that's how I have it connected. So what happens is when I want to track something out on the MPC into Logic or Pro Tools or whatever I'm using, what I do is change the MPC to let's say I'll change it to the MIDI sync mode, and then basically change the sync into number 2 and change the mode to MIDI time code. I don't have to change the receive MMC or anything like that because I really don't need that. But I change it to MIDI time code. So then when I want to track something out, all I have to do is go over here to Logic, and I can change or set Logic up so that it syncs up. And give me a second. I'll actually show you what I do to sync it up. But that's pretty much how I have it set up. So I'm receiving MIDI time code from the 003 rack into the MPC, and then I send MIDI data from the MPC to Logic or Reason or Pro Tools or whatever I'm using at the time in order to trigger the virtual instruments. And that's why I don't really have too many sound modules or anything like that, because I'm able to trigger these virtual instruments in Logic.